Our guest today is Johnny Lawrence, yeah, aka, I should say, a self-development coach. He's a certified behaviour change coach here at the Coaching Academy. He's also a level 3 counsellor, motivational speaker, and host of the Self-Development Cast. Now, Johnny has on many occasions been called the catalyst for transformation, and he's set himself the mission of helping as many people as he can create meaningful and permanent change. And what he says is, and I'm sure he'll share today, is that his own lived experience is evidence that change is always possible. But it starts with becoming clear about what you want and why you want it. And that will really help to shape how you achieve it. Now, there are going to be so many wonderful things that Johnny's going to bring to this conversation today. So I want to maximise the time and dive straight in and say, welcome, Johnny, to Coaching Conversations. It's really lovely to have you with us here today.
I feel like the most important thing is happy birthday. You kept that under the radar.
When a woman gets to a certain age, you sort of either have to embrace it or hide it. I'm not quite sure which side of the coin I am with that one at the moment, but thank you very much. So it's really lovely to have you here today, and there is so much that I want to discuss with you, that I want to ask you about your work. As I say, you are a sought after speaker. I know that you have 100% been a very busy person this weekend because you've been part of the Exhale Festival, which you have been kept you busy all weekend. But before we dive into all of those things and more, mind just rewinding a little and just a little bit about you. And your motivation maybe just to become a coach. Let's start there.
Well, I mean, as you say, I'm Johnny, and I'm better known these days as a self-development coach. And one of those reasons is because I have literally dedicated the rest of my time to helping as many people as I can with their self-development. And I do that because I believe that when education meets experience, it creates wisdom. And, the education, obviously, you get from the coaching academy, you continue to learn, you listen to podcasts, you read books, you do all the things, go to seminars and all of that. But really, it's my experience as a kid, growing up around domestic violence, growing up around being abused, both physically and emotionally, and experiencing aspects of torture as a child. And all of those things have sort of given me real life examples of just how life is, like really is, so what people really feel and the little mechanisms and meanings that we apply to things in our life. I later battled a little bit with addiction, as I tried to sort of make things a bit easier for myself. I ended up drinking a lot of alcohol when I was on my own, in a flat when I was about 16 years old. But really, if you ask me why I became a coach, the truth of it is I've always been a coach. My mum is very kind and she says that I've always been her life coach. I used to sit with her with some really heavy problems, from a very early age, obviously domestic violence being one of them, but we had a lot of debt as well. I had to go to work with my mum when I was about 10 years old because she had to take on cleaning jobs in a nearby industrial estate. And that was an eye opener for me at that early age. So my mum was my first client, and because of low self-esteem, I never really believed from any early age that I could be a coach or I could be a counselor or a psychologist, but I became a professional wrestler instead. Okay. And ended up going to the gym and doing all the gym stuff, and loved being in the gym and got into shape pretty quickly. And people started asking my advice on things. So I started, helping them out and training with them and stuff, and realized I was a helper. And a bit later on a landmark birthday, I was sat back and I was reading all of my testimonials because I was having this want to get out of the fitness industry type of feeling. And I realized that even though I'd help people lose weight, even though I'd help people get stronger and battle diabetes and all of those things, nobody mentioned it. Everybody on these testimonials was saying, Johnny's helped me with my relationships. Johnny's helped me with my confidence. And it hit me like I was like, maybe I'm not supposed to just do this. Maybe I should look into coaching. And then I saw a coaching academy advert and it basically told me who I was. And I was like, right, I think I'm going to try this thing. And I did a trial thing. And then before you know it, I was in, and I've not looked back. It's been a roller coaster since that point.
Wow. Wow, that is amazing. And often we sort of talk about who we are is how we coach, but certainly you're definitely walking your talk. And thank you for being open and sharing that and stepping into that space of vulnerability and being open. Because it really sounds like, that you have absolutely owned the experiences that you've had, and despite those, actually, you've used those to not just improve your own life, but the life of those around you as well. So, yeah, incredible. I'm quite interested in sort of maybe just sort of talking about in a little bit more depth is that you talk about being always being a coach. When did you sort of absolutely recognize that what you were doing was a coaching approach rather than, "Oh, I'm just being a good friend or I'm just asking a question type speak?"
I think it was when I think I heard the analogy. I think it was Chris that said it actually about being the co-pilot and just being the listener. Now, growing up, I always listened. I was always hyper vigilant. I was always very conscious of my surroundings for lots of obvious reasons, but I spent a lot of time listening and a lot of time not having the answers, but watching situations resolve themselves to a conclusion and thinking to myself, oh, okay, well, maybe it's not my job to give people answers. Maybe it's not my job to have all the answers and be this guru. Maybe it's my job to listen and occasionally reflect and challenge. And that's what I did. I do that naturally. And one of the reasons why, I started as a PT was because I didn't have any confidence at the time, or self-worth or self-esteem to believe I could be this coach or this counselor or this psychologist. But what I never realized I was doing was those moments when I was in the gym with people might be the only time that they have had somebody listen to them all week. That might have been the only time. Maybe it's 2 or 3 times a week. And I remember some sessions, um, there was a lady that I used to train a long time ago, and I remember it was quite a icebreaker. She said, "Can I breastfeed during the sessions?" And I was like, yeah, okay." And then before we know it, we're doing these sessions, and she was just talking, and quite often she wouldn't get a great deal done, but she'd always tell me how amazing the sessions were, which made me think to myself, there's more to this. She feels like she needs a safe place to come. She needs a safe place to where she can talk about how she's feeling and being a new mother and being stressed and all of these different things. And that wasn't something she could find in a gym. So therefore, when she was working with me in the studio, I started to realize, well, hang on a minute, there's something to this.
Really powerful. When you talk about coaching, what sort of comes out sort of really sort of loud, where for me is concerned, and you don't hear it very often actually in professional coaching um, environments, is I'm going to make a bit of a leap here. To me, it's sort of it says walking your talk, but um, you're very honest and open with who you are and your background, and often in when we sort of meet coaches and people sort of who are on the speaker circuit, there's a little bit of a facade, and we're not really quite sure if the person that we've met is the real person underneath it. And we've worked together in the past, and there is an authenticity there. Would you say if people would say to you, yeah, but if you open yourself and be really authentic and vulnerable, you're stepping into a place of weakness?
Hmm, not at all. I think one of the bravest things you can do is be vulnerable because you don't know what's going to happen. You can sit there with this preconceived idea about if I sell this version of myself to the world, then they'll accept it. But what if that version's not true? That's life. Life only aligns with what's true. The only thing that's important in coaching and in life is what is true, because there's nothing, people talk a lot about mental health being about um, finding happiness, finding fulfillment. I think it's more about creating stability. I think sometimes you just want to wake up in the morning and know that you can trust life a little bit, that your job's going to be there, that the people that you love are in your life, and that the things that you rely upon each day are going to be there. Well, nothing's more stable than the truth. And what I offer is vulnerability and a sense of I have been through some really, really, really difficult things. And it's taken me a really long time to be able to admit that to myself and actually see it from the perspective that's helpful. And I would find it very difficult to get to the end of my life and accept that I went through those things for nothing. So if I can offer something, some learning that's going to help somebody in some way, I genuinely and truly mean that, you know. So that's why I share. I'm not looking for sympathy. I'm not looking for poor Johnny or anything like that. What I'm what I all like with the podcast, for example, I get people on that have had really, really difficult things happen to them. But the important aspect of the guest is always that they can offer something from it. You've been through this really, really difficult time, but what did you take from it? What can you pass along that's going to help somebody else? And the same with experts. It's all about trying to help. It's all about not giving advice, but offering a different perspective. And it's up to the person to choose whether or not they can take that perspective or not. I was on a talk recently and I told a story just before the break. And I said, can everybody write down what they took from the story, put it on a post-it note and put it on the door to the side of the door before you leave? And when you come back in, I want you to read the post-it notes. And they came back in and they read the post-it notes and I said, what did you notice? They said, not one of them was the same. So you tell a story, and what's interesting is that everybody takes something different from the story because it's their life and they're applying. And this is it. This is coaching in a nutshell. We are applying at all times when we give advice. If we give advice, we're also giving our values, our belief systems, our experiences. How does that help somebody else? It doesn't, you know. And all that happens is when somebody takes that advice, they've just learned that they have to go to you for it, you know, so they're not taking any autonomy. Or if it doesn't go very well, then they've got to live with your decisions. That doesn't seem right either. So I think that's why I think it's important to be vulnerable and tell the truth, because what else is there?
Yeah, no, it's very, very powerful, really powerful. So, what the area that you coach within, Johnny, is behavior change. Um, Tell me a little bit more about what a behavior change coach does. What does it mean?
Well, I think it's about firstly identifying, and we know this. So someone will come to me and they'll say, I hate that I do this. And I'm like, right, okay. And to be honest, that's got nothing to do with it. That's sort of like a response, a reaction, whatever you want to call it. It's a consequence of what's going on. So we ask a few more questions and we start to dig deep. And, you know, I created a model called the M.A.D.E principles, where I encourage people to look into 4 areas of their life. And those 4 areas are their morals, which is really looking into their values and looking into their belief systems, their ambitions, which is what do you want? And when I say that, I mean, what do you really want? Not what sounds pretty, not what you think other people want you to hear. What do you really want? And then your drivers, why do you want it? You know, because when it gets really difficult, when it gets really, really hard, why you want something is going to be important. When I was a PT, I used to ask people what's driving their decision to lose weight. And unfortunately, some people would say, because I hate myself. And I'd say, okay, so when it gets really difficult and you have to make the right decision, is I hate myself going to help you? It's not, you know, but maybe I'm learning to respect myself, you know, enough to make the right decisions. Maybe we could start there or get to know myself even. A lot of the time, people don't even really know who they are. And then the last one, the E, is environments. Is your environment set up to help you? Is it set up to help you achieve your goal? Is set up to sabotage you in some way? You know, when I gave up alcohol, it wouldn't have been very clever of me to have a very, very big wine cellar because I probably would have drunk the wine. So I think it's important to set my environment up. And I think what people don't realize right at the beginning, and I know it's part of what's taught, and it's one of the things that really hammered it home to me, is that core values piece. Because if you think about it, it's in the title, values. It's what you value most. Well, if you can figure out what you value most, you can build your self-worth, because that's it, isn't it? It's telling you that this is what I value within myself. This is my worth, you know, and it's your values. And if you don't stick to your values, a lot of the time when you see those celebrities that go off the rails, it will be some sort of moral dilemma somewhere. where they've moved away from their morals and they've started to compromise, and then they compromise again and they compromise again. And before they know it, they're really far away from what they believe. And there's a stressor that comes with that. So I think that answers the question. I hope so.
Yeah, no, it absolutely does. And I mean, what a fantastic model. Very, very in awe of people that create coaching models or sort of, models to use with their clients. And I love that acronym. And it's like a really powerful tool. Find that the process really sort of helps your clients.
Sorry, say that again.
How do you find that using that MADE principle process, how do you find that helps your clients when you're working with them?
Well, firstly, it's a principle on purpose because it's sort of non-directive. Yes, it's making suggestions of certain areas, but they're your areas. And really what it comes down to, I think, is a lot of the time people don't know themselves. They collect other people's opinions, they collect other people's preferences, and in some cases they can disguise other people's preferences as their values. So it can become really confusing. So what this process does is it gets you to know who you are, so that when it comes to making a decision, that you know what you're going to do because you know who you are. You might not like it in some cases, but you can accept it because you know this is keeping in line with your values. I've had many things that I've tried since I've become a coach that haven't worked, but I get disappointed. Obviously, I experience the disappointment of it all. But then when I look back, I say to myself, did I stick to my values? Yes, I did. I can live with that then. I can be okay with that now because I stuck to my values. I made sure that I didn't compromise myself, and I won't compromise myself. Because I don't like the way it feels. I'm not someone that lies. I don't tell lies. Um, I try to stick to the truth as best as I can at all times, but also I'm also aligning with what's true to me, to my values. And sometimes what I've experienced when I've made mistakes is that my values have changed and I've not done the update. I like to use the analogy of a mobile phone. Mobile phone is the hardware, and on the software, it sometimes asks you to update it, right? And we don't update it because we're always using it all the time and we haven't got time to do that. And then before you know it, it's switching itself off and on all the time and the apps aren't working and you have to do the update. And that's a bit like us. We are the hardware. Our value system is our software. And if we don't update, stuff starts to go wrong. Stuff stops working and things start to fall out of alignment. So I think the process teaches somebody through their own teacher. They look into their morals and what's always interesting to me, and I'm sure many people here have experienced it, they're surprised by their values. They're like, huh, I didn't know that, myself included. I've recently did a value update and I was really surprised at some of the things that have come up. And of course, when I think about it logically, of course it has changed. I'm not the same person I was when I was 20, 30, so things have to change and we have to update.
I absolutely love that. And I really love the whole um mobile phone and sort of system update analogy. It makes absolute sense. And so, sort of using your framework, using your sort of your principles, your principle approach, the MADE principles, in helping clients maybe to understand, the motivational drivers and how their environment and how their morals and their values, once those things are all aligned and you're aware of them, actually how powerful that is, rather than
Mm.
self-sabotaging, you're going to move forward. Brilliant. Love that so much. Ask you a little question actually, and I hope that I hope that actually it's helpful for sort of people that are listening today, because I know that you are a bit of a mountain climber or trekking person, and we've had a previous guest on a couple of years ago, Sushil Serpil, and he shared how coaching really supported him in getting to Everest Base Camp. I know you've done a couple of really life-changing mountain climbing and trekking experiences. And I wonder if, well, first of all, how you can sort of share how perhaps that informed your methods for encouraging change in your clients, but also perhaps how it may have informed your creation of maybe the MADE principles, or how it just sort of impacted on you.
I mean, for me, my whole life has been about my relationship with fear. And when I climbed the mountain, I got what specific, well, both of them, in fact, last year, but specifically Mount Tupkal. I was terrified because I knew that I had altitude sickness, but I told myself I didn't come all the way here to not get to the top. And I started off down that journey of climbing a mountain, and lots of things were going on. I won't tell people because it's a bit gross, but lots of things going on, and I wasn't well, let's say, and I was really, really struggling, and I was getting more and more scared, and I kept telling myself I got to get to the top, rare, 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 and I was really battling with what was going to happen. What was going to happen here, what was going to happen here, and in essence, what I'm getting at is I wasn't making a decision. I was just hoping it would all go away. I was hoping they would all work itself out somehow magically. And I was just kept putting one foot in front of the other. And slowly the team sort of broke away from me, and I was left with one other individual. And he was a former SAS guy. And we get to this amazing spot on the top of a ridge. And we could just see the Sahara Desert. And we were supposed to get to the top for 7 a.m. when the sun came up. And he said, Johnny, you're not going to make it to the top for 7 a.m., but let's stand here because you'll see the sunset from here. I said, okay. And I felt really emotional. And he said, what's the matter? I said, I'm really struggling. And he said, okay, up or down. And I was like, phew, straight to it then. Let's make a decision. Up. Something happened in that moment. And I realized the power of a decision. You see, a mountain doesn't care if you're cold, doesn't care if you're tired, doesn't care if you don't feel well, doesn't care if you get to the top or not, doesn't care. A mountain is a mountain. It will not change for you. You have to change for it. So I'm climbing this mountain, and I decided I'm going to the top. I have made my decision. I'm going to stop wondering what ifs and maybes, and I'm going to keep putting my one foot in front of the other and move towards the top. So making the decision gave me a sense of relief. I've made my decision. Did it take away any of the pain? Nope. It was really, really painful still, but I knew it was going to be painful. And here was the second thing that I learned, was that I was able to accept that change is hard, and that we shouldn't be looking for hacks. We shouldn't waste our time trying to work out if we can make things easier. We just need to accept that it's difficult. And I put one foot in front of the other, and I kept moving and I kept moving. And before I got hit a false summit, which nearly broke me, but eventually I got to the top, and I just had the most emotional reaction, one that I don't know if I've had in a really long time. Um, and I couldn't believe it. I was just, I can't believe I really didn't think I would be able to do it at one point. But it was that moment there where I made the decision and I accepted it was going to be difficult. And I just kept putting one foot in front of the other. And that was something that I learned that stuck with me. And I've used it many, many times with myself. And I've used it very, very, very many times with my clients too. The power of decision.
Mm. And I think, it gives us agency, doesn't it? We can talk about, sort of, what's in our control. Well, we've got, going up the mountain, going down the mountain. The thing that's in control is the decision that we make in that moment, which is so powerful, isn't it?
Mm.
A little bird told me that
Uh-oh.
you have a favorite quote, which is by Muhammad Ali, which goes something along the lines of, we can't be brave without fear.
Yeah.
It sort of seems fitting to bring them up here. What resonate with you so much?
When I was a kid, I was always scared. I was always scared. I was always crying myself to sleep. I was always in fear of something that was bad was going to happen. And it was because it usually did. So I grew up feeling like I was a scared and weak person. And when I heard that quote, when it said that you can't be brave without feeling fear, I realized for the first time in my life, it set me free from that limiting belief that I was weak and fearful. And it showed me, my God, I've been brave all this time. Listen, you can't be brave without first feeling scared. You can't do it. You're not being brave in that point. You're just doing something. And then it gave me empathy, gave me compassion towards myself. It made me realize that I'm a brave person. When I realized I was brave, I was like, wait, hang on a minute. I'm brave. I didn't know that. That's changed the way I look at myself completely. Well, I'm brave. I'm a brave person. I'm going to do brave things. And whenever I come up against fear, I'm like, oh, great. That's exactly the fuel I need, because that's what it is. Fear can be fuel. It can be the necessary ingredient for you to be brave, because this is what we do as coaches. We work with people that are scared to take a step. They very rarely don't know what it is. They come to you and they say, "Oh, I don't know what to do." And it's like, we'll see. Because I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know what it is, but they do. And all I've got to do is listen and keep pointing out stuff and gently challenging things and slowly let them take more and more of the rope. And then they go, "Oh, hang on a minute, mate. What if I did this? Yeah, what if you did that?" You know, and so to me, it freed me from believing that I was scared and weak, and that scared and weak was a problem. You know, being scared makes sense. Where I was scary. It was a very scary place, you know, and there was lots of things going on. So when I realized that I was brave, it was a gift. So that's what that quote gave me. It was a gift from Muhammad Ali.
Mm. Yeah, we can't say that, can we? We got a gift by Dolly.
Yeah.
That's a really, that's a real, really powerful, and what an incredibly powerful example of, and I'll use the word again, the power of reframe. And how, when we step into that place and we own it, then, we see ourselves differently. When we see ourselves differently, we have a different identity, which allows us to change things and to move forward.
So the reframe is only helpful if it's true. And again, we come back to the truth. What is true
Mm.
about myself, and that's why I don't offer advice. I offer different perspectives, a different perspective of the same thing is that I'm not weak and fearful, that I am brave. We know that fear is a primary emotion. So it makes perfect sense that I'm going to have a secondary emotion instead and call myself this and call myself that, because that's going to be way easier than being scared, right? So, yeah.
Mm. Totally. And you talked about primary and secondary emotions there, which it makes sense then to start sort of talking about them, because you said that fear is a primary emotion. I know because of the work that I've done in the past, and anger is a secondary emotion. How do they link?
So first and foremost, a primary emotion is an emotion about an event. Something happens and you have a strong emotion about it. Those emotions can be emotions like disappointment, fear, helplessness, hopelessness. Joy could be joy, inadequacy, sadness, vulnerability. These are all emotions that are impossible feeling. They're very, very difficult to have. So quite often, if we have another option, we'll take that instead. The other option is the secondary emotion, which is an emotion about an emotion. Much easier to be angry than scared, much easier to be angry than inadequate, much easier to be angry than helpless. A lot of the time, um, when I'm working with women, mums specifically, and they say they have mum guilt and they get really angry and frustrated in themselves. And I say to them, is it guilt or is it helplessness? Because guilt says that you've done something wrong. As far as I can see, you haven't done anything wrong unless there's anything you want to add. Because it sounds to me like you're in a really tough situation and there's a whole element of helplessness that's going on here. And you're going to get angry instead because you're going to get frustrated and that's going to come out in your behavior. And guess what? We can't process anger, not really, because it's a secular emotion. It'll tell you to blame somebody. But what I'm interested in is the impact of it. Okay. What are you angry about? I'm angry because I'm doing everything. I'm angry because it doesn't matter how much I do, I can't get enough done. I feel utterly helpless, right? I understand. What can we do about that helplessness? We can ask for help. We can ask for help. There are people out there that can help us. Who are they? And that's what's important. It's about understanding that if you want to understand why someone's angry, why someone's feeling resentful, why somebody's frustrated, if you want to understand those emotions, you have to get to the primary one, which will be heavily guarded, by the way. It will take a little while to get there and you have to want to get there. You can't force somebody and certainly can't tell them. It's difficult, very difficult. And that's why they need support.
Yeah, totally. And a real sort of gentle exploration as well. It's interesting, isn't it? Because there's so much stigma around the feeling of anger.
Mm.
And when I used to do a lot of work, not so much these days, but I used to do a lot of work with young people who would be displaying their feelings through angry behavior. And often what is told to, to young people is, don't be angry. Don't be
Mm.
angry. Anger is wrong. And so what we do is we teach our young people to suppress that anger, or they feel wrong about that, or that there must be something bad about them that they're feeling that way. And then I guess, the that plays out then into adulthood. And then if they are able to work with somebody like yourself, I'm guessing then you're able to start to gently explore with your clients through them sort of raising their awareness of secondary and primary feelings and emotions so that they can get to the potential root cause or process or begin to change the way that they behave. I don't know. Is that sort of like the way that you would work with a client?
I mean, I know nobody likes being angry, but being angry is not wrong. Anger is our body's alert system to let us know that our boundary's been crossed, and that gives us the energy to put it back in place again. Emotions are never wrong, in my opinion. Um, I look at it a bit like a calculator. If you put in the wrong numbers, you get the wrong answers. Yeah. So if you put in the wrong emotions, you get the wrong emotion, if you know what I mean. So it's a message. Listen to it. And we're told all the time, don't be angry. So what you're saying is don't feel the way that I feel. Okay. Well, how do I do that? Now I can't even do that.
Yeah.
So it's about really understanding, okay, right, I'm angry. I am angry. Now, what's different? Suppressed anger, that's different because that can come out in two ways, essentially. It can either be suppressed and go inward, where we start to experience symptoms of depression because we're basically turning that anger on ourselves, or it can go outwards and become rage. You drive into the supermarket, someone nicks your space, and you are ready to commit murder. Not a typical reaction. Something's not okay here. So we need to understand it. So I get it. A lot of the time, people wait until that rage or that depression comes up before they feel like they need to do something. But what if we just take the anger and we ask ourselves, what's it trying to tell us? Well, I'm continuously letting this person bully me and continuously allowing this situation in my life that I'm not enjoying to play out all of the time. I don't want to be with my partner. I don't want to be in this job. I'm sick of my friendship group. I don't want to do this. I want to do that. All of these things are creating frustration and anger, and you feel helpless, hopeless, all those different emotions. So it's about the anger is trying to tell us something. And it's a bit like I notice it in my sons. It's like they ask me if they can do something, and I'm like, no. And I don't know about any other parents here, but when my son asks me to do something, I'm going to say no. He doesn't just go, okay, dad, cheers then. He will escalate the situation and he will escalate it until I listen and I start to pay attention and I start to find solutions. And that's what emotions such as anger do. They are trying to get our attention. They are not wrong or right. They're just trying to tell us something and we should listen. And it's the act of not validating our anger, gaslighting ourselves, that causes the frustration and causes all of the anger to get out of control and become rage or depression.
Wow. And that's probably a whole nother conversation that we could spend 45 minutes covering. I'm absolutely not
Yeah.
diving a little bit if it's okay.
Say that again.
Um,
Sorry.
I want to dive in a little bit, if it's okay, to some other areas. I know you've spoken at many festivals. You're a really sought after speaker, and I know you've spoken at places like Latitude, and as I say, more recently, Exhale Festival at the weekend, and some of the lineups, the people that you've been speaking alongside. They're pretty big names in sort of the area of expertise on breath work or therapy or whatever. Your keynote is on the theme of from brave to purpose. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Why from brave to purpose? Or from fear to purpose, actually, I think it is, isn't it? From fear to purpose.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of the time people don't move forward because they're scared. They're scared of not knowing what's going to happen. They might be scared of failure. And in some cases, certainly in my case, scared of success. You don't know what's going to happen, you know? And we look at that fear and we use it as a reason to not do something. But my question to you is, what if it is the reason to do something? I don't know anybody that's scared and they don't know what they're scared of. They generally know, they generally know, even if they can't articulate it, that's why it's so important to explore, right? To explore, to talk. See, human beings organize their mind through having conversations. The amount of times I've been speaking to somebody, not even in a coaching capacity, maybe my wife or my friend or whatever, and they'll stop themselves and go, oh, didn't know I felt that way. I didn't know I felt that way. That's interesting. I can't believe I just said that. It's like, yeah, it's because you've just allowed them. And I think it's part of a spiraling process, right? So people say, oh, spiraling's really bad. The client's spiraling out of control. And actually, that can be bad, but it can also be helpful. What if you spiral in towards the solution? What if you start problem solving as you spiral and you start to come up with solutions by eliminating things that are clearly not going to happen or not helpful in some way? The problem can be when we start to spiral outwards and we make the problem bigger and we make it so big that the fear becomes enormous and we can't move forward. That fear is something to look into. It's a direction when you feel stuck. It is a direction. It's saying, hey, I'm over here. No, I don't want to look at you. You're really scary. It's like, well, it's over here. There's a saying that I absolutely love, and it's the thing that you are looking for is found in the thing that you are avoiding. We avoid it because it scares us, but it's trying to tell us something. Listen, you're unhappy, you're frustrated, whatever it is, you need to make a change. You need to make a decision. You need to accept that it's going to be difficult, and you need to start taking the steps to move forward. So how are we going to do that? Well, that's on you. Let's talk about it. Let's explore it. Let's spiral. Let's get out of control.
Love that, Johnny. And, it just goes to show really what an absolute incredibly privileged position we're in as coaches to be working with clients and create that psychologically safe space for them to start to explore these things, for us to hold that space and ask a gently challenging question for clients to start to, okay, so maybe I'm not quite ready to go into that cave yet, but I do want to start exploring perhaps what I'm avoiding, because what we resist persists. So if we
Mm,
want change, we need to lean into it, don't we? We need to lean into that. Really, really powerful. And there's so much coming into the chat box about, sort of how relatable it is and how inspiring the conversation is. So thank you for these amazing messages that are popping up on my screen at the moment. I wish I had much more time, but I want to give you some more time, um, because this is such a valuable conversation. To share something that I ask all of my guests. I ask them all to share something that those listening today, those are here today, can either incorporate for themselves as a coach or into their coaching. So if you were to share something for the people listening today, for them to use for themselves or for them to use with a client, what would you say?
I suppose I would share a case study of a client recently who was fiercely independent. They were fiercely independent and they believed that their independence was bravery, that they were bravely independent. However, independence isn't independence is competency. It says that you can do something on your own. It doesn't say that you should do it on your own or that you have to do it on your own. And it was the meaning that she applied to the word independence that held her back. So I asked her and I said, what if the meaning that you've given independence has created a fear in you that you can't ask for help? Perhaps you're not independent. What if you're not independent? What if you're just a chronic people pleaser? Like you want to make sure that this woman had, she was looking after her children. She was running her own business. She was supporting her partner. She was uh, also looking after some aging parents. She was doing all of it and not asking for any help because she was independent, you know? And this fear had developed in her that she would be weak in some way, that if she asked for help. So the reframe there was we leaned into the fear. What if we did ask for help? All of a sudden it became the solution. So there's another analogy that I love, and it's I heard it once somewhere. I've never tried it, by the way, and that is that when you get stung by a stinging nettle leaf, the antidote to the sting is found within the leaf that stung you. You just got to be brave enough to scrunch up the leaf that just stung you and rub it on the wound. And that is what I'd like to share. You have to, not have to, it would be a good idea to encourage your client to lean into the fear. And also, it's not your job to have the answers, right? And it's only when they lean into the fear and the emotions come up that it becomes, all of a sudden, there starts to be more solutions and answers. So I hope that's helpful. But I feel, for me, it certainly was anyway.
I mean, it's not just helpful, but incredibly powerful. Incredibly powerful. Where can people find out a little bit more about you, Johnny? Where do you hang out? Where can people sort of connect with you, follow you, listen to your podcast, etc.?
Well, I'm on most platforms as the self-development coach, and then there's my website, which is the selfdevelopmentcoach.co.uk, and then the self-development podcast, where I've had wonderful guests, one in particular, Sharon,
Well, I wonder
who
who that might be.
yeah, you can find that on YouTube and all podcast platforms. Like I said, I speak to people on the podcast that have got helpful things to say, or have been through something and can pass along something that's been helpful to them. That's all it is, literally.
I love that little word. Oh, that's all it is. Well, it's incredibly powerful, and you do get incredible books on there as well. And you've as we know, we have a book that is just going through the stage of publication at the moment. So perhaps you would come back and talk to us when your book is published and share a little bit more about those M.A.D.E principles and the framework that you've sort of created to support the client so powerfully that you work with. Would you do that?
Yeah, love to.
Oh, amazing, amazing, amazing. Well, wonderful people, the time has come for you perhaps to write down something that you are going to take away in action. What's today been about for you? This year for me is about the what, so what, now what? And I brought that into coaching conversations. So Johnny has shared with you the what. He shared with you some incredible things today, very inspiring. But for you, what has been the so what and the now what? So what are you taking away, and now what are you going to do about it? So please make sure you write something down, take away an action. I'd love you to share that in the chat box as well, if you would like to, which is lovely. It's always lovely to see what you're going to be taking away. Somebody's just asked how to find you on YouTube, Johnny. Have you got a YouTube channel?
Yeah, that should just be the self-development coach too, I think, or the self-development podcast. I've never actually typed it in, so I don't know.
There's a common theme, people. It's self-development. So, or self-development coach. You will find Johnny has a great platform there. Wonderful. Before everybody leaves us, we would love you to fill out our little feedback poll. That would be great, which I know Catherine is going to share on the screen at the moment. But please do share in the chat box your personal things that you're taking away. But just a quick little sort of rating on how you found today's session. Yeah, which would be wonderful. And that's sitting on the screen at the moment for people to participate in. Johnny, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for sparing the time, especially after the weekend. I'm sure that your weekend of speaking was not just inspiring, but also a lot of speaking to take away and process as a result of that, which is great news. Lots coming in the chat box. What was the name of the mountain that you climbed up, Johnny?
The mounting,
Mm.
Mount Tukal in Morocco, and then a few months later, I went to Nepal and did the Annapurna circuit.
There you are, for the person that asked that question, which is fantastic. Thank you again for joining us. We look forward to you joining us again next month. But from me, from Catherine, and from Johnny as well, and the whole team here at the Coaching Academy, thanks so much. Take care and see you next month. Bye for now.